In a quiet Brussels suburb, neighbors knew him as Pastor Pandy, a man of God, a pillar of the community. But behind the closed doors of his home, a horror unfolded that would remain hidden for over a decade. It wasn't until a daughter, haunted by secrets, finally broke her silence that the world would learn the truth. What she revealed was a story of unimaginable evil, a tale of a father who turned his family home into a tomb. Andras Pandy was born in Hungary in 1927. After the Hungarian Revolution of 1956, he fled to Belgium, establishing himself as a Protestant pastor. He married his first wife, Ilona Soares, and they had 3 children, a daughter named Agnes and 2 sons, Daniel and Zoltan. From the outside, they were a respectable religious family. But the facade began to crack in the late 1960s when the marriage ended in a bitter divorce. Pandy gained custody of the children and Ilona moved on. Pandy's life took another turn when he married a woman named Edith Finter. Edith was a mother of 3 girls from a previous relationship, Tamia, Andrea, and Maria. Together, they had another son, Marke. The Pandy household was now a large, blended family. But this wasn't a happy home. Pandy was a domineering and abusive patriarch, ruling his family with an iron fist, cloaked in religious piety. His control was absolute and dissent was not tolerated. The disappearances began in 1986. Pandy's first wife, Ilona, and her 2 sons with Pandy, Daniel and Zoltan, vanished. When people asked where they went, Pandy had a ready-made story. He claimed Ilona had taken the boys and run off to join a religious sect, cutting off all contact. It seemed plausible enough. Divorce can be messy, and people sometimes make drastic life changes. No one questioned the respected pastor. 2 years later, in 1988, more family members disappeared. This time it was Pandy's second wife, Edith, and her daughter Andrea. Again, Pandy had an explanation. He told everyone that Edith had grown tired of their life and had taken Andrea to live in another country, just vanishing without a trace. People who knew Edith found it strange, but who were they to question the grieving husband? In 1990, Edith's other daughter, Tamia, also vanished. The pattern was chilling, yet no one connected the dots. The family members were simply gone. Pandy explained their absences with postcards, supposedly sent from around the world, assuring everyone they were fine. For years, these lies held. The investigation didn't truly begin until 1992, years after the first disappearances. It was Edith Finter's family back in Hungary who raised the alarm. They hadn't heard from Edith or her daughters in years and found it deeply suspicious. They filed a missing persons report with Belgian authorities. At the same time, another of Pandy's daughters, Agnes, who had been living with her father, fled the family home and sought refuge in a women's shelter. Initially, the police were slow to act. Pandy was a man of the cloth, and his stories seemed to check out, at least on the surface. He presented the postcards as proof. The case went cold. But the family in Hungary persisted, and their pressure eventually led to the case being reopened in 1996. This time, investigators were determined to find the truth. They started by questioning the one person who had escaped, Agnes Pandy. What Agnes told them was a story so horrific, it was almost unbelievable. She confessed that her father had not only murdered his 2 wives and 4 of his children and stepchildren, but he had forced her to be his accomplice. Her testimony painted a picture of a household governed by terror and manipulation. According to Agnes, the murders were methodical and brutal. Pandy would lure his victims into the basement of their home. He would strike them on the head with a hammer and then shoot them. But the horror didn't end there. To dispose of the bodies and eliminate all evidence, Pandy turned to a gruesome chemical process. He forced Agnes to help him dismember the bodies. They would then dissolve the remains in barrels filled with industrial-grade drain cleaner, a powerful corrosive acid. The process took hours, sometimes days. Agnes described how they would pour the resulting human sludge down the drain, or dump it at a local slaughterhouse, where it would mix with animal waste, never to be found. For the parts that wouldn't dissolve, like bones, Pandy would either bury them in the garden or dispose of them in trash bins. This was how a pastor made 6 people disappear without a trace. The postcards? Agnes revealed that Pandy had forced her to write them, forging the handwriting of her dead family members to create the illusion they were still alive and traveling the world. She had lived with this secret for years, trapped in a cycle of abuse and fear. Her father had complete psychological control over her, making her a prisoner in her own home and a participant in his monstrous crimes. Armed with Agnes's chilling confession, Police arrested Andres Pandy in 1997. They launched a massive forensic investigation of his properties in Brussels. They dug up the gardens and tore apart the basements of 2 houses he owned. Despite their efforts, they found no human remains. Pandy's acid disposal method had been terrifyingly effective. The lack of bodies was a major hurdle for the prosecution. This would have to be a case built on testimony and circumstantial evidence. Investigators did find bone fragments in the garden of one of Pandy's homes, but they were too small and degraded to be definitively identified as human. They also found a collection of firearms. The most compelling evidence, however, was Agnes's detailed and unwavering testimony. Her account was so specific and filled with such horrific detail that it was hard to dismiss. The trial began in 2002. Andres Pandy, then 75 years old, maintained his innocence throughout. He denied everything, portraying himself as a loving father and a victim of a conspiracy. He claimed Agnes was a liar, mentally unstable and seeking revenge. He was calm, articulate, and defiant on the stand. But his carefully constructed facade began to crumble under the weight of Agnes's testimony. She recounted the horrors in court, telling the jury how her father had groomed and manipulated her from a young age, turning her into his slave and accomplice. The prosecution argued that Pandy was a master manipulator, a psychopath hiding behind a collar. They believed he killed his family members for financial gain, to gain control of their assets, and to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. In the end, the jury believed Agnes. In March 2002, Andres Pandy was found guilty of the murders of 6 family members. He was sentenced to life in prison. Agnes Pandy was also found guilty for her role in 5 of the murders and was sentenced to 21 years in prison. She was granted early release in 2010 and has since lived in anonymity. Andres Pandy died in prison in 2013 at the age of 86, taking the full truth of his motives with him to the grave. The case of the acid bath pastor left a dark stain on the community and stands as a chilling reminder of the evil that can hide in plain sight. It reveals how a charismatic figure can use faith and trust as a shield, concealing monstrous acts behind a veil of respectability. The story of the Pandy family is a tragic testament to the darkness that can fester within a family and the courage it takes for a survivor to finally bring that darkness to light. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into unforgettable cases. Stay safe out there.